to Lorde, which when we make the show and we're kind of discussing like how do we want to have these conversations, where do we want it to go, we kind of think what's like the record that we're most excited about, that we like the most, that's most high profile. Let's save that to the end, kind of build up to it. And most times, Lorde would be near the end, and especially after Melodrama, which was I think on both of our top 10 lists, maybe both of our favorite albums of that year.
It was my number 2 after Kendrick's Damn 2017.
Yeah, and I pretty much we both were like, Lorde is a rocket ship. She can't be stopped. She's going to be dominating pop music. And all signs would have said that was a good bet. Solar Power comes out. We heard the single. Pretty good. It felt like this like washed out, like summery feel to it, which I was like, okay, a little more toned down. And, when you're working with Jack Antonoff at this point, and, after a year of COVID, I think a lot of people are kind of going in this direction with pop music. Wasn't surprised to hear it. But then you get a couple of the other singles, right? You get Mood Ring, Thoughts from the Nail Salon.
Stone of the Nail Salon.
Stone of the Nail Salon, right? And you're just kind of like, I'm not sure what's coming here. There's an obvious like satirical feel, I think, in the concept, but man, this album really disappointed me. And thinking about who else we're talking about today. I mean, we're going to be getting to Halsey and Little Sims, and most of the time we would be, putting them earlier in the show because they're not as high profile. But it feels like both of them released an album that I was more excited about than Lorde, and I could not be more surprised by that. So I just want to like start it off with like, where were your expectations at going in? And then after listening, how are you feeling?
Yeah. So obviously Melodrama, that had a lot of justly earned hype around it, and of course, something that we participated in, as you said. And hearing these singles with Solar Power, I wasn't being wowed, and I was so like, the anticipation starts to become apprehension when it is a album, movie, whatever it is that you're excited about, and it's maybe not going to meet those expectations. Not necessarily the most fair thing to put on the artist, but that's just yourself as the viewer, the audience, whatever it is. So I was like, don't know how this is going to go. And I never thought I would say that, as you said, because there was so much excitement around Lorde. But if we actually like take a step back and think about what's happened since Melodrama came out, and like Lorde, she toured that album to the end of 2018, but then 1920 and most of 2021, she was completely gone, just chilling in New Zealand. That's a big thing on this album, right? How she's rejected fame, left California. She's back home doing her thing, not on social media, all that. Not the most relatable thing or accessible experience than what she was getting out of Melodrama, which was much more, I think, easy to understand in terms of like heartbreak and all that. But also, there's just been a lot of like pop convention changes, right? Like since Melodrama came out, there are 3 Ariana Grande albums that came out, 3 Taylor Swift albums, Billie Eilish became a thing, Olivia Rodrigo, right? Like there's so much stuff has happened, but also even in this Lorde, like what Lorde stuff, like her trademarks are after Melodrama, a lot like the weirder mannerism stuff. Well, Billy started doing that. All the stuff with Jack Antonoff and that sonic idea. Well, we're getting a lot of that now at Lana Del Rey and Clairo and Taylor as well. Like Jack, as we know, is omnipresent. So it just seems like Lorde's coming back in like a very different pop landscape, but she's also intentionally not giving us any hits this time. There's no green light. There's no perfect places on Solar Power. So I think you have to really be invested in Lorde's lyrical aspirations on this album to be into it, because sonically it doesn't sound as revelatory as she used to in 2017, given what else is going on in pop. But also, I just don't think the records are there this time, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah. I think Solar Power is by far the best track on this album. And if you had played that single for me and told me this is going to be the best song off Lorde's next album, I wouldn't have believed you, because while Solar Power is, I think, a really strong song, and there's a couple other songs on here that stand out. Um, I don't think this is her best work. Obviously, I think there's probably 5 to maybe 7 tracks off Melodrama that I would consider stronger than Solar Power. Solar Power still, I think, is really cool because it has that like almost like acoustic like Rolling Stones type feel, which I think is a good lane for her. But man, it just feels like some of the moments on here, that she's like going for to be like these big, almost like laugh at this like wellness
Right.
lifestyle,
On Mood
don't
Ring.
actually hit. Yeah, Mood Ring specifically is almost like, so there's no like laugh line about it. She's just kind of like mentioning all these things, and it almost becomes a song about wellness culture that wellness culture will like, but it's supposed to, I think, also be satirical, but
Yeah.
never actually is satirical. I don't know. It's a little confusing. But then like what is it? What's the one I for some reason can't find my notes on it, but the one where they at the end they have the Robin doing the airline thing.
Secrets
Secrets from
from
a
a
Girl Who's
Girl
Seen It
Who's Seen
All.
It All.
I mean, what a ham-fisted moment, to like say like pick up your emotional baggage at Carousel 2, and like I was just like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this is really tough, and it just feels like someone who's young trying to write a song like they're older than they are, and I felt like whatever she was going for on a lot of this album just never really
Mm-hmm.
actualized in a big way. I mean, are there any tracks here that you really would see yourself going back to again?
Yeah, there's one track. Just on the Robin moment. That's actually could have been some like really smart like meta move because Laura's
Sure.
clearly approaching her career the way Robin did in terms of
Absolutely.
rejecting mainstream fame and how she's trying to move in and around the pop industry and stuff. The song again just doesn't quite come together the same way Mood Ring. She's telling us it's satire and press, but like it's not hitting that level that it should, and as you said, perhaps going too far in the other direction and being not cutting enough at all. I think the one song I really like though is the first track, "The Path," and I think if "The Path"
Mm.
was a single, I would have been like actually very excited about the album, and then even more let down, I suppose. But yeah, I really like "The Path," like how that builds, and that has that line where she's like, "If you're looking for a savior, that's not me," or however she says it, and
Mm.
that does speak to the rest of the album in terms of what she's trying to get at here. But I actually think that song sounds really good. The way like it builds up and her vocals kind of change throughout the song reminds me a lot of what she did so well on Melodrama that people really liked. And there's that, and then I guess the end of Oceanic Feeling I enjoyed a lot. But other than that, yeah, I mean, there's just like some touches here. Like I like the way Fallen Fruit builds. But yeah, I mean, I think a thing I've heard people talking is this a happy record or a sad record? You
Mm.
know, and the fact that I don't really know is probably an issue.
Yeah. I think just in terms of concept, I think Lord almost had too much going on. I think what made Melodrama great is it explored. It was a breakup album that explored it from a lot of different angles, but kind of had like a central concept that it kept coming back to. Whereas this feels like Lorde had a lot of different ideas, but maybe none of them actually actualized in the way that she hoped to. So I was driving, listening to this album again, and I had this thought, Dave, specific to the podcast. Is Lorde the like musical version of Alicia Vikander to us, where we like anointed her after yeah, come on, it's true. We're like we anointed her as like the queen, the next like great actress, and then had this like dud of a run, or at least disappointing couple of films, but now coming back in Green Knight this year. I mean, Lord's best stuff is ahead of her. It's not like this is going to be the direction her career goes,
You know,
but
when you said it, I was like, nah, there's no way because Lord was like super, super mainstream and accepted. But I was like, wait a minute, no, Alicia Vikander won an Oscar.
yeah.
Like it's the same thing. Um, yeah, I guess that does track in terms of the themes of the pod here. And the key difference, of course, as you said, Lord is only 24. This is her
Mm.
third record. She's 24. I'd like to think she might only wait 2 years till the next one, not 4. That'd be a nice touch.
That would be a
Either
nice
way, that
touch.
would still be another one before she's in her 30s. So she's still set up to be a very prolific creator. And in the grand scheme of things, this will probably be a weird bump, a weird footnote in the Lorde discography when it's all said and done. But in terms of living in the moment here, it's still not what I thought was going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I also want to see Jack Antonoff. We talked about this a couple weeks ago, but I just want to see him get back to making like more exciting stuff again. It's just
Yeah.
been this like really toned down sound recently from
And
him.
and that's another thing too. Lorde kind of bristled at some of the Jack Antonoff comments in some of the profiles she did leading up to Solar Power release, in terms of like Jack and his stables of female pop singers. And like I understand that like Lorde wants to have a lot of ownership over what she's done. At the end of the day, Jack co-wrote I think everything on this with Lorde except for like two tracks, so he's still very present. And like the Jack Sonics still have a through line throughout all this pop music we're talking about. So I understand that she wants to make sure her identity and her contributions are what's rewarded here. But I mean, Jack Antonoff's presence in a lot of the pop music we talk about lately is just kind of hard to deny. And we, as you said, we'd like Jack to maybe move on in a certain respect to like a lot of his ticks lately.
Mhm.
And I don't want to. I'm not blaming Lorde or Jack, either one, for how this album turned out. I just don't think. I don't think the records were there at the end. Like Lorde's the royal now.
Mhm.
And she just didn't end up giving us the songs that can really speak to that the way she thought she would. So it is what it is. It's
Yeah,
okay.
I ended up listening to Lover the other day from Taylor Swift, and also, obviously playing back some of Melodrama and just like Green Light. Um, I forgot that you existed. A downbeat song that is just so much more exciting and fun than a lot of these other sounds that have come out from Antonoff recently in his production. So he can. I mean, both of them can get it back, but it's just been a bit of a hard stretch for Jack.